topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask Good Questions podcast, broadcasting live every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on W4CY Radio at W4CY.com. This week and every week, we will reach for a higher purpose in money and life, as well as a focus on health and wellness. Now, let's join your host, Benita Bell Anderson, as together we start with Asking Good Questions.
Welcome to the Ask Good Questions podcast. I am your host, Benita Bell Anderson, and I am so happy that you have joined us today. We have got a fantastic show with a real pro in the personal development field that is just going to be a fascinating thing here for us. So with that, I would like to invite Dr. Agi Keramidas. Oh boy, I hope I said that right.
Yes, you did.
Did I pronounce that right, Agi?
Very nice, very nice. Well done.
So I'm so excited to have him. I met him because of a group of people that do podcasting, and it's called Podmatch. And I met him because of him doing a training, like a webinar training for people that do podcasts. And so I was so excited. He's actually in the UK. We were playing with time zones today because I'm still in Hawaii. My engineer is in Florida and Agi is in the UK. So with that, let me tell you a little bit about him. He's originally from Greece and based in the UK since 2010. So you've been there for a while now. 16 years. So he's the host of the Personal Development Mastery podcast, which has over 500 episodes. You've been doing it for a while. And he ranks in the global top 1%. He's had the privilege of interviewing more than 300 thought leaders, including Brian Tracy and Mark Victor Hansen, who I have done a lot of things with, and Dr. John DeMartini, as well as inspiring individuals from all walks of life. Interesting random fact about him is he once guarded a wheelbarrow full of hot coals at a Tony Robbins event. I know, but I did the walking on hot coals at a Harvecker event one time back in the day.
It's a great experience.
Yes, it was.
Very empowering.
I was very surprised. So do you want to add anything to that?
Thank you for the introduction. It's great to be here. If you're asking me to add something to the wheelbarrow full of hot coals, it was part of I was volunteering as a crew at that time, and we were responsible for organizing, setting up the firewalk, which means, the hot coals that people walk on. So It was my responsibility at that time to guard that wheelbarrow because there were lots of people around and it could become dangerous if I got distracted. So that's the story behind it.
Wow. How long did you do that?
How long? The firewalk lasts a few hours, 2-3 hours. So something like that. It took me about, I was doing that for about a couple of hours. Yeah.
Well, okay. So we are going to talk about a book you've written. That book is called 88 Actionable Insights for Life. Discover the secrets shared by experts on personal development mastery. So I feel like you're a little bit of like Napoleon Hill going out and interviewing people.
Thank you very much for the analogy. It is quite... I understand that, and I will go past your very flattering comment about Napoleon Hill. interviewing people is one of the best ways to gain knowledge about a topic that you want to gain knowledge about. You're already doing it, Bonita, with the podcast, and so was I with my podcast. So it was only a matter of time before all these interviews at that time started to create a niche inside me that I need to do something else with them rather than just audio content. So then I took the time to organize some of that content, put it into categories, and eventually turn into a book.
Right. Awesome. Well, what first led you to this whole idea of personal development work, and why did you feel, so did you feel like you were starting to get something that needed to get out there?
As a matter of fact, it started because I needed answers for myself. It was not about getting anything out there. It was about me trying to understand what was happening with me. And that was about 10, 11 years ago. I had just finished a master's degree. My profession, or what I trained to be, is a dentist. So I had just at that time finished a master's degree in dentistry, and I found myself in a very strange position where after 2 years of studying, lots of expenses and so on, I didn't feel like I wanted to do any of that sophisticated advanced dentistry. I had lost my motivation. At that time, I was just entering my 40s, so I'm sure that this also had something to do with it, this midlife
Midlife.
transition. Yes. So I turned to personal development to find answers for myself, because I wanted to understand what is happening with me. Why am I not content and happy with what I've been doing? What is it that I want to do? And I started reading books, I went to seminars, one thing led to the other. But it was, in the beginning, it was an inner quest, a desire to understand what was happening within me, way before it turned into, podcast or expressing those things outwardly.
Wow. That's quite something, because being a financial advisor, I've worked with a lot of dentists, and I've actually seen I don't know, I maybe want to just call it the angst. I mean, there can be a lot going on with that profession. Well, let's turn a little bit more to just this whole idea of just people and what they want to do. Why do you think so many people know what they want, but they still struggle to achieve it?
I think knowing what to do and doing it are two different things. So I think the answer to your question lies in the second bit. Many, as you said, many people, if not most people, know what to do, but they don't do what they know. There is the struggle immediately, because knowledge without application of the knowledge does not progress one's life.
Right.
Or to use a phrase that I like very much, to know and not to do is really not to know.
Yeah, right. That is so true. Well, do you think you've found that people often underestimate how much their energy or their habits, I think probably habits, and their physical well-being affect their mindset and their progress?
I suppose they do. Sometimes they do underestimate the habits, the energy level. All these things play a big role in how we think. And how we think affects how we feel. How we feel affects what decisions and actions we will take. And the latter really affects the results that we will have. So if we start our day, for example, being tired because we didn't sleep well, and that's because perhaps we had 2-3 glasses of wine the previous night, then inevitably the results that we will produce in that day will be inferior to same day, all the other factors being equal,
Right.
but having the top energy, mental energy, clarity, all these things that come with, health, we'll put it generally like that, to do stuff and be more inspired. It's a combination of facts, and I think it's a cornerstone, being healthy, being energetic, having this kind of a clear mental and physical position, if I can put it like that, from which we can operate.
Right. Well, I totally get that. I feel like if I don't feel right, I'm not going to be the best at whatever I'm doing that day. I'm just not. So there is actually, as I have been reading your book, I was completely drawn to chapter 8. And so that's where we're going to spend. We're already 11 minutes into our podcast here. And so, but we're going to spend most of the rest of the time on chapter 8 and those principles. So what is it really? And so the name, the chapter heading is Master Your Personal Development. What does it really mean to you, Agi, to master your personal development?
It's a great question to start with, because my understanding of what this means has changed over the years. Initially, I thought that mastering personal development would be like mastering something external, like mastering a musical instrument or mastering a foreign language or something like that. In other words, reaching a stage or a level where your comprehension of and understanding and ability to practice that is at a superior level. What I realized after a point in my own journey, and that is my understanding up to now, is that the mastery of personal development is not a destination. It is not an end point. It is not something to be achieved as such. Yeah. Rather than that, it is a constant, continuous, perhaps rather than constant, a continuous art of improving ourselves, perfecting towards a vision that we want or we have set. It is not a destination, it is a journey, and that journey consists of every single day, really, every passing hour, I would even say, every moment that constitutes the journey. So mastering the personal development, our personal development, means breaking it down and mastering the day, mastering the hour, mastering the moment.
Every moment. Right. Well, you kind of start that chapter with reprogramming your subconscious mind. I think that what you just said has a lot to do with reprogramming yourself so that you get going right.
I think, in order to reprogram, as you say, there is, before we reach that level, we have to understand first what is happening and how our subconscious mind operates and how it influences, if not commands, but certainly influences everything that we do, all the decisions we make, all even the things that we speak, all those things are directed by the subconscious mind. And to the very large extent, this happens, well, as the word says, subconsciously. We are not aware of it in such a way. We think we are, and we think that we are being aware in, doing an action or saying a comment or whatever else it is. But more often than not, this is not the case. We are not aware of it. It happens automatically without the intervention of our conscious mind at that moment. So I think that is the fundamental level, what we need to understand before we even discuss about reprogramming it or anything like that.
Right. Well, so let's start with that minimum morning routine. What's your minimum morning routine when you first wake up? What do you think?
I like the term like minimum morning routine, and that came because for many people, morning routine meant, and also for me in the beginning, a huge list of tasks or activities that need to be done in the morning. So meditate, do this, do that, exercise, journaling, gratitude, blah, 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 which could take easily over an hour, which is fine if you have that hour in
Yeah,
the morning.
yeah.
But
I'm with you.
most people don't have the luxury, shall we say, of having 1 hour in the morning completely to themselves to do whatever they want. So a minimum routine, the concept of a minimum routine means for me that yes, I could do all these things and spend 1 hour, and actually sometimes I do. When I have the time, I do it. But often I don't have the time. So I do compress or eliminate some elements and only keep the bare essentials for that particular day. And if you were to ask me which are for me the bare essentials, one of them is meditation. That has been a cornerstone of my morning routine for many years, over a decade. Journaling, where I write down a few things about how I'm feeling or what I'm grateful for, or even look through my day so that I am prepared in a way. You know, I'm aware and prepared of what I need to do. And some form of physical exercise, which depends on the time. It can be as quick as a 10-minute yoga practice, which I can do and it really helps, or it can be, you know, if I have the time, I can go out and have a run for half an hour. So it all depends, but the minimum are some things that are in a way non-negotiable for me, that even if I only have 10 minutes or 15 minutes available, I will squeeze those things in to the best way that I can.
Well, it looks like you have 10 elements. So you've mentioned what, 3 of them? What are the other ones then? If besides that, if you had the time.
Yes, the 10 elements. One of them, now I'm trying to remember, one of them was to hydrate, have water, which is
I kind of do that
important.
while I'm, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Many people, unfortunately, go for the coffee machine immediately when they wake up, which is wrong for many reasons, but let's not go into that yet. One other thing, one other element, very important. What else is it now? I'm trying to think which ones I've said. The very, very first one, which I believe it's very important, is when the alarm goes off, get out of the bed. Do not snooze, do not press the snooze button, do not do anything like that. And there is a very simple reason for that. This is the first decision you're making in the day.
Oh,
so if the first decision you make the day is one of comfort, let me snooze for another 10 minutes, like you need 10 minutes after a 7-hour sleep, which it doesn't make sense. We do it because it is a matter of comfort. You know, it's nice and warm and comfortable. But that decision sets the tone, whether we are aware of it or not. It sets the tone for other decisions that we will take. So when we start our day like this, then further down the line, when we are more tired in the day, it's easier to take the decision that is comfortable rather than the right thing to do.
Okay. Interesting. Well, another concept that you talk about is expose yourself to the worst case scenario. Is that like, what's the worst thing that could happen today? What does that mean, Agi?
I remember that particular chapter from the book was from a guest that I had who was, he had a stutter and he was a TEDx speaker, which is, on many levels, this doesn't, and he was actually, he delivered the speech while having the stutter, and he was telling me that exposing himself to the worst case scenario, and I'm using him as an example because that's how I have written it in the book, was to actually speak to people that he didn't know and say, look, I have a stutter. And being exposed to the potential ridicule that they might have, or if they were, young people, they would laugh at him or things like that. But what he realized was that after he done it, he felt empowered because he didn't die, nothing bad happened of him. The only thing that really happened afterwards was that he felt better about himself, that he could do that and he would not care, or at least he would not care to such an extent about what other people would tell him. So that is, a practical example that I mention in my book, but it can be more theoretical if you want. I mean, if you want to visualize, and actually now that I say visualize, that was also one of the 10 elements that you asked me earlier about the day. You could visualize the worst case scenario or something bad that might happen, and that is not, to attract it and make it happen. If only we could do that like this, it would be a very different situation. We can't anyway, but we can prepare mentally for something bad that might happen. So if that happens, it does not catch us, it does not grab us by surprise. It does not catch us by surprise. So we have more had the opportunity to process it and think about some potential outcomes or some potential responses that we might have.
Yeah. So you're a little bit prepared. Well, you talk about changing your life with a simple 5-minute a day tool. What might that 5-minute a day tool be?
Bonita, you'll have to help me out here now because it is something specific on the book that I don't remember which 5-minute tool you mean. There are many 5-minute tools.
There's 5-minute tools. Okay. All right. We'll move on. Well, I think that one thing that stops people a lot is limiting beliefs. Mm-hmm. And basically one of the things you've said is look at your limiting beliefs rather than look through them, which I think is interesting because my belief is that sometimes we don't even know what our limiting beliefs are.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And the best analogy that I can think of limiting beliefs, it's like a pair of glasses, of spectacles, that we look through them, and most of the time, and anyone who wears glasses, or perhaps if you wear sunglasses or anything like that, most of the time you are not aware that they're there. You just look through them, you see whatever it is that you see, and you take that as your visual perception, your image. You do not look at the actual lens, at the frame. So this is a similarity that our limiting beliefs, or our beliefs in general, have, because they filter or they change the way that we see things depending on what kind of beliefs there are. So if there are glasses, for example, if I have these glasses, or if I put a pair of dark glasses, all of a sudden everything will look dark. And that's probably the time that I realized that something has changed. But if I keep on wearing my sunglasses day in, day out, sooner or later this will become the normal for me. I will forget that there are sunglasses there, and I will believe that this dark tint that I see everywhere around me is how things are. So that is a great analogy to consider when we're thinking about our beliefs and our limiting beliefs in particular. There is one example that I have that in the book as well, and it makes me, I will say that because I think it is very clear. It made a big impact on me the first time I heard that, and it is two people, two friends walking down the street. One of them loves dogs, the other one is terrified of dogs, and they're going around walking, chatting about something, and all of a sudden a dog starts running towards them. So the situation, the external situation, is objectively the same. There are two people and a dog running towards them. Subjectively, though, those two people will have a very different experience of reality and experience of that situation. One person would feel really happy that there is a dog coming and perhaps he wants to, pet him or whatever. The other person will be scared, terrified, and not only in his, not only mentally, also his body. If he feels scared, then there will be a physical response to that. So that is a great example of different lenses, different beliefs there. The same exact situation, two completely different internal representations or internal understandings of reality or experiences of reality.
Well, if that person who's freaked out about the dog, how do they begin? If they become aware that they want to change that, what would you say would be the first thing that they would need to do to start changing that? If they're realizing, okay, this is stupid, I don't want to be scared like this. How would they start changing that? I guess basically another thing from this chapter is overcoming your limiting beliefs.
For sure, and I wish there was some simple answer that I could, share right now in 1 minute and say this is how you reprogram your subconscious mind. Bonita, when I find that very simple and effective method, I will get back to you and share it with the world. But
I think it's awareness, isn't it? Maybe awareness is the first step.
Awareness is the first step for sure, because if I become aware that I'm afraid of dogs and I want to change that, that would lead me to look for solutions. If I'm not aware of it, or if I don't mind it, or if I accept that as part of who I am, that this is who I am and I'm afraid of dogs and period, then there is little chance of, taking some action in order to change that belief.
Yeah. Well, talk to me about self-sabotage, because I think probably if you have those limiting beliefs, you're going to self-sabotage yourself. You're not going to take some actions. You're not going to do some things that could move you forward. Isn't that correct?
For sure. And self-sabotage happens, I think, to most of us, or at least it wants to happen. And that's it reminds me of what I said earlier about pressing the snooze button before when the alarm goes off. That is in a way a form of self-sabotage, provided that you had some plans for your day, and that's why you set your alarm at a certain time. So you wanted to do it, but you are not doing it by snoozing. Therefore, you are self-sabotaging. And, with self-sabotage, what comes up now that you're asking me about this is a tendency to stay in our comfort zone one way or another, or a tendency to avoid doing something that will be uncomfortable or be fearful or be potentially, could be, it depends on what each person's limiting beliefs are that will be challenged or pushed. So the self-sabotaging is a very nice disguise. Because I'm saying disguise because we don't usually call it self-sabotage. So if we do something that prevents us from growing or taking some kind of action out of the comfort zone, we don't necessarily call it self-sabotage. We find our mind has a way of rationalizing it very well and giving us a great reasons, or it presents them as reasons, even though they're excuses really, but it presents us real solid reasons why what we chose to do is the right thing to do, and we won't be in trouble, and we can carry on. But when you look at it objectively, or perhaps when someone else helps you to see it objectively, because it is more difficult to be objective about ourselves. Well, so when we look at that from a different perspective, then we realize, yes, it is self-sabotage, because, I had the opportunity, for example, to go as a guest to a podcast like this, and I didn't.
Right.
At that time, you might have felt, and I don't know why I'm giving this example, but anyway, it is probably because we're both podcasters. But any similar situation where we avoid doing something that would challenge us in a way or another, and instead we do what is familiar, what is comfortable, what is not challenging us.
Right.
This is, in a simple form, the self-sabotage. I mean, it can go way much deeper than that, but I feel more prone to share this more subtle expression of self-sabotage rather than, something that is very clear, like, turning to heavy drinking. That is a different form of self-sabotage, which is more easy to observe, perhaps. But there are more subtle levels than that, that it would be useful to be aware of.
Right. Well, I think there's a related concept, and that is something else you mentioned about noticing your autopilot response. I think that we can have an autopilot response towards avoiding discomfort, self-sabotaging, or if you feel like you want to move yourself forward, maybe your autopilot response is going to be, hey, I'm going to try that. So what's your feeling about this whole idea of an autopilot response?
The autopilot response goes back to, we were talking about the subconscious earlier, and that is how I perceive the autopilot response is something that happens habitually, a response or a habit or an action that we do, that we do not take the time or have the awareness in the moment to process it and filter it before it is expressed, before it is taken as an action. So I don't know if that answers your question. It's rather it's a complex thing, and I'm trying the best way to describe it as simply as I can.
I'm just going to encourage everyone to read this book, because there is a lot there, and basically we're kind of skimming the surface. But I think one of the things that I completely agree with that you say in this chapter is your beliefs and perceptions create your reality. I think that is like one of those foundational things, that whatever you believe, whatever you perceive, that's going to be your reality, right?
It's that example with the dog again, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
What you perceive, if you perceive that dogs are evil creatures that want to hurt you, and that you might have some really good reasons for doing that, because perhaps there is a dog bit you as a child and you keep on carrying that. But that is a clear example of how our perception and our beliefs determine our reality, or how we experience our reality, because reality is something completely individual to each person. It is not one objective reality. Our reality is very, very subjective.
Right. Well, one of the I'm thinking about the whole thing with getting out of bed and getting your day started right. Another concept here is the power of proximity. So using the power of proximity to your advantage. I'm thinking like, well, if you have your running clothes out and your shoes are laid out and everything's ready to go, then you're more prone. Is that kind of like what you're thinking? Is the power of proximity would be set yourself up to do the things you want to do?
That certainly helps. I think in the context I have in the book about the power of proximity was the proximity with other people, like peers or mentors or coaches, this kind of proximity. But to go back to your example, yes, if you plan on running, for example, the next day, having the running shoes and the clothes right next to the door, it's a very great facilitator of that,
Right.
because it removes an excuse that you could use. Now I need to find my shoes, I need to do that. So it removes that. And I will add, since you mentioned that, I will add one more trick, if I can call it like that. Let's say that the previous day you were planning to run 3 miles or 5 kilometers or whatever it is that you had planned to run. And then the next day, despite having put the shoes next to the door, you don't feel like it. And I mean, I'm raising my hand here because I have been there many times.
Been there,
you
done
really
that too.
don't feel like it. The trick is to say to yourself, okay, I'm just going to go out and run. I'm not going to run the 3 miles that I had said I would do. I will only going to run once around the block and go back. This really lowers the threshold of resistance, because running for 3 or 5 minutes is something that the mind finds it more difficult to say, no, you can't do even that. And what happens from my experience usually is that once you are out and you have tricked your mind into, I'm just going to go for half a mile or whatever, then you find because you start to feel good, you end up doing what you had said that you would do.
Yeah, maybe I can
But
do
you have
more.
to trick a little bit. Our mind tricks us all the time, so it's good to be able to trick it back with some techniques like this.
Yeah. That is absolutely true. I have found that so often. And if I just get started, then I'll just, I can keep going. Right. So you talk about a mastermind. And one of the things I got to tell you, Agi, is that I started my podcast in 2024. Mm-hmm. And before that, I had a limiting belief that, I can't do that. And then I actually had a mentor who said, why not you? And look at all the experience you have and all that. And so I just decided to start. And it's one of those things where I just kind of kept going one step at a time. Mm-hmm. And now the reason that I met you was because of the mastermind group that's within Podmatch and other people that are doing this sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So what has been your experience with mastermind groups?
What comes to my mind now that you ask that, and thank you for the question, is that the sum, I will use a quote now, the sum I will say it again, the total, in this case of the intelligence of the people in the mastermind, the total is more than the sum of each individual of the sum of the people. And what I'm trying to, I think I'm a bit confusing now. What I'm trying to say is that, and that has been also my experience with mastermind groups, that often there are things that are said or solutions that are being presented that people look at each other and say, wow, okay, where did that come from?
Yeah.
And I think it comes from, you mentioned Napoleon Hill in the beginning, who talks about the concept of the mastermind groups. And he was he was saying that when a group of people coordinate for, the best of all, then they tap into, he called it the infinite intelligence, or something that is beyond, the minds of the individuals. So that has also been my experience. And as a matter of fact, now that I will give an example, many years ago, the idea of starting a podcast came from a mastermind group. Someone else said a comment and I thought, wow, I had never thought of that. Yeah, let's start a podcast. That was back in 2018.
So, okay. So, and like normal, these interviews seem to go really fast. And so I want to start winding, kind of bringing it all together here.
Sure.
You talk about improving those 2 stories that you tell. What are the 2 stories that you tell?
Again, you are referring from a chapter on my book that there was a guest that he was a speaking coach that he was talking about stories. And the stories that he refers to, it was the story of our past. In other words, what has happened to me, what is the journey that has led me here.
Yeah.
And the other was the story we tell about our future. And this, again, we were talking about the subconscious and autopilot responses. Often, and I will invite someone listening or watching us now to think what is their own experience of that. What is the story of their past that they're carrying with them to the present moment? For example, for me, before I started my personal development journey, I was, or at least I believed that I was, shy, introverted, uncomfortable in social situations, that my words did not appeal to people, or people they were not interested in that. So that was a story that I was telling myself, not necessarily consciously, but I was telling that story at the back of my mind, and that story was influencing how I would show up in social events or in conversations or, meeting a stranger. So that is the story of the past, and that story of the past, it is up to us to look at it and rework it in a more empowering way, which, it's a big topic. The other is the story of the future. When we look at ourselves ahead, 1 year from now, 5 years from now, 20 years from now, what do we see? And the thing is that Bonita or me or anyone, we don't really know. The best we can do is guess. So might as well guess something that empowers us or something that inspires us to go there, rather than guessing that the next 10 years of my life will be exactly like these 10 years were.
Right.
I mean, it is a choice to use and say that story. And also it is a choice to change it.
Well, we're going to have to wrap up here, unfortunately, but I have so appreciated having Agi as my guest today. The book, again, is 88 Actionable Insights for Life. Discover the secrets shared by experts on personal development mastery. Personal Development Mastery is also the name of his podcast. And you will be able to find all the information about Agi on my website, where I have a little flyer about guests and what when they have been there, and the link to the episode. So, Agi, if there was one thing that you would tell people, one practical idea from your book, what would it be to have people maybe do a little bit better in this arena?
The one that comes up right now is to take a small but deliberate action towards something that you are curious about, or something that intrigues you, or something that you have been, entertaining an idea but not really done anything about it for probably the reasons that we were talking about earlier, other limiting beliefs or a story that you would be saying or the autopilot or whatever. So my invitation would be to think about that thing or that idea that you feel curious about. Perhaps it's not enthusiasm, but there is some curiosity, something drawing you towards that, and take one small step or one small action towards it. It doesn't have to be anything massive or anything that you commit to do anything. It can be as simple as picking up the phone and calling someone you know and asking them about it, or going into the web and researching about it. But take some kind of action towards it. Do it now if you can, or if you're not able because you're driving or something else, do it as soon as you have a chance, and see that this little action has the potential to bring another action and another after that, and so on. So that is my invitation. Take some small but deliberate action towards something that intrigues you or you are curious about.
Awesome. The name of this podcast is Ask Good Questions, and I always try to do that, and I always try to leave people with something. So think about what Agi has said. Think about what small action you could take to move you down the road towards those things that you would most like to accomplish. And with that, Agi, thank you so much for being my guest today. I so appreciate you. And with that, we are finished for today. Thank you for joining our episode today on the Ask Good Questions podcast. We'll see you next time.
Today's episode is over, but we did ask good questions again, didn't we? Don't miss out as we broadcast live every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on W4CY Radio at W4CY.com. Join Benita Bell Anderson next week for more conversations with experts on finances, retirement, behavioral finance issues, health and wellness, and more. Until then, remember to ask good questions.